I have a mover and seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Van Berkel, all those in favor? That's carried. And for any of those are online, we shall be back out to deal with item 4.5 in, can we guess, probably 6:30-ish? Yeah, 6:37. Just tune in then. Okay, thank you. Are we good? All right. Hello, everyone. If Shane, are you watching? If you are, hi, Shane. Shane told me how much he likes the watching it online because he can pause to make his notes and then hit it again. So he can make sure that he's reporting our meetings accurately. Okay, so we are on item 4.2, a rise and report at 7:43, moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Deputy Mayor Davidson. All those in favor? That's carried. Business item 1, recommendation to carry through with this was actually the workshop information. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? Thank you. And finally, direction given to staff a healthcare facility be confirmed, and Councillor Alex Waters and Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So now we'll move on to item 4.5. The recommendation is on the screen. And is there anyone presenting on this? Mr. Rayner? So you're just looking we're looking for a mover and a second for this recommendation. Councillor Fowler and Councillor Waters. Questions and comments? Councillor Orsatti.
There was one comment in the staff report that just gave an alternative whether council wanted to prioritize the items that were going to the ministry I know this is a joint application, but in the staff report, it was a comment in there about whether we want to prioritize the items because there is now 4 going for funding. So I'm just asking whether that was anything that anybody wanted to discuss.
Thank you. It's almost like I set you up to ask me that question. I didn't, by the way. But, but the reason, one of the reasons I think it is a good idea, and perhaps might even be a good idea to prioritize in the way is that we only make a submission for less than the 4, is after conversation with our member of provincial parliament, MPP Kanjan, when she asked if we were submitting for this program. I told her we were, and when I suggested we were going to submit multiple projects, and in my thinking it was a good idea because then the province could pick the one that checked off the most boxes, and maybe that's the one that they would nominate to the federal government for funding. She kind of, she didn't know if she thought that was a good idea. She kind of thought it'd be better if council was united around, that might look like then council wasn't united around one project, and that's why we needed to submit so many. So, so it was her not suggestion, but her comment that perhaps it would be better not to just kind of spray many of them and hope, one of them would catch their attention. And I mean, I guess on the other hand, you could be very optimistic and suggest that maybe they were going to fund all of them, but I highly doubt that, considering the last time I heard, and submissions haven't even closed yet, but the last I heard, it was this particular program was well overprescribed by, I think, 4 times what the allowable funding was. So I'm looking for suggestions from members of council on whether or not they think it's a good idea to prioritize, and if so, what they think their priorities are. Mr. Rayner.
Your worship, members of council, just as you're considering that question from your worship, one of the things to note is that the Kempenfelt Bay School is lead applicant, I think, on their project. So even if we didn't prioritize that one, they only have one project from their perspective, so they'll be putting that in. And I think, to echo your worship's comments, we are also hearing that partnerships are a very valued part of this government's approach to finding efficiencies and the economies that they need to. So we would not recommend removing our partnership proposal with Kempenfelt, knowing that that's going, or that KBS is, that it's going to likely go ahead anyways, that project. But just wanted to share that with you as you're considering a potential prioritization. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Any, Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. Just a clarification with our CAO then. So then if I'm to understand this correctly, the recommendation is for this one to look at, this one would be looked at separately because it's a joint one, and KBS is the initial applicant, and we are the joint, and that wouldn't take away from us prioritizing and picking maybe one that we want to focus on the 3 that we previously picked. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, almost. I don't know what will happen at the ministry level in terms of weighing this. What I am suggesting to you is that even if you decided that this project wasn't your top priority, it's going to go in anyways. So I'm suggesting that the partnership piece remain. So my advice would be, our advice would be that at most you're putting in at least 2, or at the very least, I should say, you're putting in at least 2 projects. You're partnering with the KBS piece because it's going to go in anyways, and then if there's a top priority for council, that would be we would be the lead applicant in that other project.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Sadi.
I hope it hasn't started where I'm only allowed to speak 3 times yet, because I'll have used up my time. So I just, clarification, I see you smiling. So, so what's on the agenda is for the KBS, so we're voting on that. When are we to prioritize the others? Because we already gave the go-ahead to staff on all 3. So when would you like us to prioritize? Is that tonight as well? If you could just...
Through Your Worship, yes. So my recollection is the grant applications are due November 12th. So there would not be an opportunity beyond tonight for council to weigh in on this. So tonight's the night. I've just sent a quick note to the clerk and the deputy clerk just to see if there's any way we could pull up the report from last time that had the different projects on it. Oh, I'm sorry. It's in
We have it in our package.
Ah, lovely.
And I'm interested in hearing council's, you know, I'm on the, who knows, right? This is like looking into a crystal ball and trying to decide what somebody's going to do. If we only put in 2, is there a chance we could get more? I mean, I know some communities, I know London, Ontario is putting in for $50 million. You know, I've been strongly told not to go, you know, to big asks, that there's probably, but dividing it into pieces is a possibility as well. I'm just going on the advice of our MPP, but, you know, obviously she won't be the one going through the, through and vetting all of the applications, but I'll ask Ms. Gucciamari if she has a comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple comments before talking about the specific projects. From the regional advisor that we had spoken with through the ministry, we were encouraged to apply for more than one project, that there wasn't a limit to the number that one eligible applicant could apply for. Additionally, there's 2 different streams for the grant. So the basic difference between the 2 is projects that are under $5 million and those that are over. And as you can see from the projects that we've recommended, we're actually asking for projects or looking to apply for projects that are not coming with as high of a price as some of the others that we know from even in our neighboring municipalities. So we do have 1 project within the $5 million range, and then 2 from the proposed that would be solely town projects that are under $10 million. And the joint one, which would be a split cost, is under 10 as well. So just a couple things to keep in mind, because is it the number of projects or the amount of money going towards one, you know, to one municipality, for example, or one applicant? Another thing to share with council is that staff have looked at those projects that we had put forward through the previous recommendation, and we have used some different criteria to look at those 3 projects. We would be willing to put one project forward as being one that would be a bit weaker in terms of the application criteria, because we aren't far enough along in the planning for that project. We don't have enough information in some ways to help us with that submission. And so when we're actually looking at how that project might be approved for the funding, it would most likely be the weakest just in terms of timing, which would be the Mobility Orbit Park. Because it is so much further out than the other projects. The Town Square project, as you know, is well underway with phase 1. So we are pretty certain with the different parameters and the different pieces for that project, what we would be looking at in terms of just costing and what's going to happen with it and timing, et cetera. And community buy-in, obviously, is a big thing. It's backed up with different plans. Additionally, with the community hub, that was the second one we had looked at in terms of criteria, in Lefroy, is backed up by some of our master plans. We've established a phase 1 has been approved in terms of design, and so we've actually made some headway on that project as well. So just looking at those 3 projects, if council did decide to prioritize the ones we've put forward, it is a possibility that from staff's perspective, this is something that we could wait on, the Mobility Orbit project.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters?
I agree that we should just go for all of them, you know, and leave it up to the people who do the analysis and pick the projects, which one they think is the best. Like I agree that the mobility project is a little bit further down the line, but I think they're all good projects. And you know, there's one in Lefroy, one in Alcona, so they seem to represent different parts of the town, and we're supposed to be one team. So I think presenting 3 that represent the town would be a good idea.
Deputy Mayor Davidson, and then Councillor Nicol.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Waters. I'm just looking at this, correct me if I'm wrong here. The town square in Alcona started off with 3 million, went to 5 million, and now it's at 9 million. So I'm concerned about that expansion in the budget for that project. The Lefroy hub, to me, is something that doesn't have anything in that particular area. It needs something for that community. So, and the orbit is out in the future. So we've got two real key areas that I really feel that we need to look at to better Lefroy, to better this gym and use here for a theater, so we're not putting a theater in Innisfil Beach Park and duplicating our process, and not putting a theater in the town square in Alcona. So I think my feeling is let's focus on the two communities that we could help best. One is education within the square we have here, the campus, and the other one being Lefroy, to bring something new to that area to revitalize it, I think would be important. Thank you.
Ms. Gucciamari, could you just want to go over the phasing for the Town Square project? If you've got that information, that's unfair of me to ask without, it's not that to answer the deputy mayor's question about the rising costs of the square, isn't that the costs are rising, it's just it was divided up into different phases. So,
No, that's
Rayner?
exactly right, Your Worship, and you'll recall that we always like to dream big, but we know that there's only so much funding, and so there were pieces to the town square we knew we didn't have funding for, but we wanted to future-proof the project so that if funding did come in play, perhaps through a grant or through, 5 years from now, they decide that they want to expand, we don't have to rip up the concrete we're putting in the conduit. So those are the kind of pieces we are doing. But the project as it is the 4.6 million that's in this report in front of you.
Deputy Mayor?
Follow up to that, I was reading next week's agenda already, and I've seen the operational tax increase. So my concern is that when we build something, even though we're doing it in stages, my concern is it's a higher maintenance, it's more cost to the municipality to maintain that. So that's why my concern is seeing that project go to 9 million, what kind of facilities are going to be there? What is the cost to the municipality down the road? So I'm concerned now about our operational costs, as I've already studied next week's agenda. That's all, thank you.
Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Just a point of order, or maybe 2 points of order. The business item here is about the KBS school and the funding application there. I believe that's the recommendation that's on the table. The other 3 projects were time-sensitive last meeting, and they've already been decided upon, have they not? We already gave direction to staff, so unless we're reconsidering those projects, we shouldn't even be discussing that at all. We should only be discussing the recommendation that's on the table right now, I believe.
You're absolutely right, Councillor Nicol, and I'll take full responsibility for bringing that back up only after getting advice from the MPP that was contrary to maybe what we're doing, and I just wanted to have that discussion with everyone. But what I'm hearing, I think, is that we want to, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got a mover and a seconder for the Kempenfelt Bay School project. And as you've said, there's no motions to do anything different for the one that we passed at the last meeting. And so I'm going to look around if there's any last comments or questions and then call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously, as was the last one, Ms. Gucciamari. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to make that comment when the application is put in, that council supports all 4 of the projects and that we voted unanimously in favor of it. And next is the confirming bylaw, and that's moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That's carried. And finally, our adjournment. And before I ask for adjournment, I just want to again thank Council for coming in on this special night to deal with this time-sensitive issue so that we could get our applications in on time for this funding. Moved by Councillor Nichols, seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, and thanks to staff for coming in tonight.
right? So.